Hello, welcome to Mo-Sys LiveLab launch, the Mo-Sys webinar. Today we're going to talk about StarTracker Studio, but before we dive in, just a bit of housekeeping. Firstly, an apology for everyone who tried to join last week. We had a bit of an incident, there was a power cut, but a week later and we are here and we are very excited to finally show you our StarTracker Studio. The webinar will be 60 minutes long. We're going to have 40 minutes presentation. There will be 20 minutes of Q&A, roughly. For the Q&A, you can use the feature at the bottom of your screen. You have a button there. You just click on it, and then you can type in your question. The webinar will be recorded, so you can watch it later in case the Wi-Fi drops or the quality is not very good. So we're going to record it in high quality and then put it online, so you can find it on our website. We also have an archive on our website where you can watch previous webinars where we talk about the UE150 with StarTracker integration or the U50 head. Yeah, and various other webinars. But today we're going to talk about StarTracker Studio. It's a low-cost solution for virtual studios. And we're going to have 4 speakers. So the start is going to make Michael Geisler, the CEO of Mo-Sys. He's going to talk about Mo-Sys and where we're coming from, who we are, what we do. Then we have James Uren. He is technical director. He's going to talk about the software side, about the Mo-Sys VP plugin. Then we have Mike Grief. We recently welcomed him to our team, and he is a commercial director. And we have Martin Parsley, who is going to talk about StarTracker. He is the lead StarTracker developer. StarTracker is the technology behind this studio. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. Over to you, Michael.
And welcome to our webinar about the StarTracker Studio. Before we dive into the studio and give you a demo on the StarTracker Studio, I want to quickly run you through our history and what other things we're doing. And that is next slide. So we're at home in the broadcast as well as in the film industry. And we start first with the film industry. We do a lot of robotics there, camera heads. We have very, very strong, very precise systems. On the left you see the L40, which is the current most popular. It carries up to 40 kilos, and even if it's sort of non-balanced load, it's super precise and extremely reliable, and on most big movies. The Lambda has a very strong history and is based on a head from Cartoni, and now in its new version, which without slip rings, through holes, and extremely strong motors. Then the system, the project we're most proud of was Gravity, because they didn't just use our equipment, so we got as well involved in some development there. And I'm seeing now that actually it was the first time ever proper LED screens have been used by perspective changing depending on the camera's position. Was exciting. Then here are our broadcast customers, and they are more than that, and there are more than 50 countries with about 100 systems installed. And for the broadcast industry, we have next robotic systems, which is the RoboJib. That is a fully motorized robotic crane that we also now have in a version that what we call synchronized robotics. So we have them in 2 different parts of the world, and they're all synchronized to the atomic clock working synchronously together, so that you can have two people on different parts in the world putting them together like they would be sitting on one table. And then the Via Dole, which is a rail system, can come curved as well and has a telescopic up and down. And then the U50, which is a COVID child, we basically very quickly developed that based on our really rugged, high precision and very, very strong control technology. We made a head that is specifically for long lenses, so even with 1600 millimeters, which is a 100-to-1 lens on an extender, you can even do whip pans. It's very, very solid. Next. Then we have our encoding or tracking cranes and heads. There is the E-crane, which is a specific crane, very, very sturdy for tracking. You can also add a StarTracker to it in the middle, and then you move it around in the studio anywhere, and no updating of your render system required at all, because it always knows where it is. The E-sensor is a camera head with all the electronics and the sensors being built in, while the Vinton V70 is actually a bolt-on kit to the most popular outside broadcasting head there is, and you bolt that on in about 10 minutes and then achieve things like we used it on the Red Bull Air Race, and that should be a video, and you see those numbers stuck on the river. I think that was in Budapest, in those crazy planes. And that was actually filmed from a wobbly cherry picker, but we did a really special tracking development for them. Okay, now we go to the StarTracker. We invented, also patented the StarTracker, and it is now our most popular product in, as I said before, about 50 countries. And we want Martin to talk about its strengths, its properties, and how it actually works. Martin, do you want to help us here?
Thank you, Mikhail. Happy to help. So hello to all our viewers here. So this is the StarTracker system. It's a tracking technology that we designed specifically about 5 years ago now or more for the purpose of tracking cameras and broadcasting film. It's an inside-out tracking system where you have what we call a sensor unit that has a camera in there, and you place that onto the camera that you want to track, and then this will give you the XYZ pan tilt roll position of that camera in real time, so you can do your VR and AR graphics. It's a very special system, we think, because we think it has an unparalleled degree of flexibility, but also robustness and ease of use. For that reason, over the past 5 years and more, we now have way over 100 studios using the StarTracker. People use this on air live every day, and they trust it. So we have clients such as NEP, the Weather Channel, Fox Sports, BBC and Sky and so on using this system. So the way it works, the properties that give it this robustness is we are tracking specifically what we call stars, so small retroreflective stickers on the ceiling, and we ignore everything else going on, such as light changes and set changes and so on. The stars are small retroreflective stickers, such as this, that you stick on randomly on your ceiling. They can be below the lights or above the lights. They don't have to be on the same level. They can be on different levels. You could even stick them on the walls if you want. Sometimes you can even stick them on the ground, for instance, for traveling studios, where you stick them on vinyl and just roll it out. So they're available in different colors. So this one's a black one, which you could just barely see, next to the standard silver one. So it's really flexible there. And by having these stickers, you really are robust in your tracking. So the setup process is you just have this one-time process where you walk around the studio with the StarTracker, and it maps by itself the positions of these stars in 3D space to build up a kind of star map, and you save that star map. And from then on, you just turn on the system, it starts automatically and finds its position in the studio in absolute space. relative by tracking the constellation of these stickers sort of in the studio space. So after a one-time calibration, from then on, there's no homing required. It's an absolute system. That means the 0 point in your studio always stays in the same place. You don't have to keep setting it every time you use. It really is a kind of set up and forget unit. It's just silently there tracking, and you don't have to think about it. You don't need to operate it. So your operators can focus on giving the best shots that they can. The flexibility, so of course you can track in practically any size spaces. We've tracked huge studios, small studios. It will work around your workflow. You don't need to try to make your studio conform to the StarTracker. And of course, the robustness. It wouldn't be a very good tracking system for broadcast if it was affected by things like lights. So you can have set changes, you can have lighting changes, strong lights shining down, the light is filtered on here, so it just ignores all the other lighting and things going on. The same with reflections. If there's plain green screens, there's no problems. The same with LED walls. And we have lots of people now using it with LED walls. So that's the StarTracker. So it'll be very exciting now to take you back to Mikhail, and he can tell you about the StarTracker Studio we've built around the StarTracker. Over to you, Mikhail.
Thank you very much, Martin. So the StarTracker is very popular and comes in different flavors. And probably it is the widest spread tracking technology that is also to be found in other products. Next, yeah. We have here, for example, the Grass Valley camera, where the StarTracker is actually built in, and that allows to operate it with much less cables around, which means also it's much more rigid. And then we have the StarTracker for the UE150. UE150 is an amazing remote camera head and zoom and tracked head from Panasonic. And we basically stuck a StarTracker underneath, and that allows this combination to now explore space by moving within space, and therefore you have an impression of the 3D area or room you're in. On top of that, we have now OEM StarTrackers that other manufacturers build into their products, and that is Vinton, Shotoku, Telemetrics, and more are thinking about it. So it becomes an industry standard and something you can trust and rely on. Next. So we finally come to the StarTracker Studio, and actually using virtual studios in a wider area than just the top broadcasters was enabled, I think, by two things. That absolute tracking came. Tracking was simpler. The StarTracker, if you have a StarTracker on your camera matching the virtual and the real world, you don't need to focus on it. You can, it just tracks wherever it is. And at the same time, enabled photorealistic graphics, render backgrounds that just look real. And this is just the beginning, it's all getting much better. But these two things sort of combined, and then we thought, we bring you a whole system that enables virtual studios. But I would like to hand over to Mike.
Great.
Tell you more about that.
Thanks, Mikhail, and good morning, everybody. So I've got two slides to run through about StarTracker Studio, to give you an idea of why we built it and some unique features about it. So before I go into why we built it, just a word on the target market. So this is a system that's designed for corporates, for enterprises, for professional sports, radio stations, maybe newspapers converting into online entities, and obviously education as well. It doesn't mean that it isn't targeted to media companies or broadcasters. It can do that, but we've targeted initially at more of the AV marketplace. So why did we build this? Well, to think about that, let's look at a typical enterprise customer with a small video studio. So they're under increasing pressure to produce more kinds of video content. So, you know, in the morning they'll be asked to do a product launch. They might have to do social media reaction video. They might have to do a dealer webinar. And it's a lot of demand on these companies for video content. So I think with the increase of virtual studio and augmented reality content, that just adds to the list of things that they have to do. If they are going to make video, of course, they have to make it compelling and differentiated, because in this world, particularly during this pandemic period, where everybody's viewing online lots and lots of different webinars, your content has to stand out. And we think that that should be from using broadcast and cinematic techniques of using moving cameras and creating more of a cinematic look. So what would solve this problem for these enterprises? Well, a virtual studio is an obvious choice. It allows a very small studio to actually appear quite large, and it importantly allows you to change the digital studio on a flick of a button. So you could have 4 or 5 different types of video on different studios, and literally they're flicked on a button, and you don't need to change the lighting. It's another key thing. But the trouble with virtual studios up until now is that they've been quite expensive, they've been complex to put together. You typically need an expert, more likely you probably need an integrator, and they're quite a challenge. So we've launched StarTracker Studio to address these issues, and I like to go through some of the more interesting aspects of it. So the key thing about this is it's an all-in-one studio. It's pre-configured, we've taken the integration work out, and we've made it really, really simple. It's all preloaded with software, it's all ready to go. The only thing you need to add to this system is 2 or 3 monitors of your choice, and then obviously you build your green screen studio and you put your lighting in there. That's it. This is designed as a moving camera solution here. So there are lots of very good, actually, broadcast type solutions for enterprises and corporates, but invariably the cameras don't move, and this is meant to emulate a broadcast or a filmic environment where the cameras do move. The proposition we put together here is a really good mix of the highest spec equipment we could find versus the price point that we wanted to hit. So it's a very, very powerful system, very configurable, but it's a very good mix of high-end technology versus price. It's got a very smart design inside. There's lots of very clever things we've done inside this system. We're trying to make it a solution that can be used in different scenarios. But just 2 I'd like to highlight. One of them is, you'll notice in that picture that at the bottom we've got 2 PCs, and there's actually 2 virtual studio licenses in this system. And that will allow you to connect 16 camera chains to this system. It comes with 3, and you can add the remaining 13. The great thing is you're only adding a camera chain, which is the camera, the lens, and the StarTracker unit on top. You don't need to add any more software or any more hardware. So think about that, because in the normal situation, you need a PC and a virtual studio license for each camera chain that you add. In this system, you don't. It's expandable, so the only option really at the beginning is you choose whether you're likely to want more or less than 8 cameras. So one rack option goes from 3 to 8 cameras, and the other one goes from 9 to 16 cameras. And the difference is we simply swap out the audio and the video mixers in the larger version. One of the key things here with this solution is taking away the support headache. So Mo-Sys is actually acting as the single vendor, single point of contact for all the support services here. So we will do the training, we'll help with the installation, we'll do the ongoing technical support through remote diagnostics and remote help, and we'll also do advanced part repair or replacement on this whole system. So we are the single point of contact. It can be used in different modes. So this is a system that you can use to do a multi-camera live-to-air streaming session, and equally the following day you could do a shot-by-shot recording session where you're perhaps making a product video. So it works in a number of different ways. And because we've built it into a rolling flight case, you can actually move this around. You could keep it static in the studio, but equally, if you have a shoot going on in somebody else's green screen studio, you can take this system complete to that studio. Okay, at that point, I'm going to hand back to Mikkel, who should be in the studio, and we'll run now through a demo of StarTracker Studio. Over to you, Mikkel.
Hello everybody, welcome in the studio. So of course, this is all green around me, and we're not here to show you what you can do with the Unreal Engine. This is based on Unreal Engine, and in this studio you can do everything that you have seen anywhere being rendered in real time on an Unreal Engine you can do here. That means shadows, reflections, everything. What we have here also is garbage masks. So you have, for example, if I walk into here, at one point it ends, and that is basically because you can have a very small green screen, but still make it look like a massive studio and goes beyond your green. I mean, for example, the ceiling, which is actually really low here, it's about 3 meters, but you see we have a studio ceiling here. So the software automatically extends beyond our green screen. I would like to invite some people into the studio, and let's have a look. Can we have a zoom in, please? Hello, everybody. Our zoom in feature allows us to bring people in from anywhere in the world without specialized equipment, of course, because it is Zoom and everybody can use their home PCs and laptops. Hi, Adam. Hi, Florian. Hi, Erica. So we can do zoom in. Thank you very much. There's another technology that we helped and that is specifically relevant during COVID times. And we called it beam in. So you basically can beam somebody in. It's a slightly more sophisticated. You ship just 2 Peli cases, and we set up a proper virtual studio and allow somebody to move around in a studio, or we move the camera like that person would be here. So Ben is actually not with us in any way. Marcus? Okay. Can you make Ben disappear? Can you demonstrate to us? Fantastic. So that was Ben. He wasn't here in the studio at all, and we just invited him in from a faraway place. So basically you can do in this system everything that you can do in the Unreal Engine, except we're adding the possibility of adding real people into the scene with real cameras. I would like to thank you at this point to Gate 11, who helped us to create this studio, and Babalu Lab, which helped us to with the lighting and the finessing of that studio. We can help you, we can point you to people that can assist in producing good graphics and good virtual studios. I would like to talk more about the hardware and what equipment we're actually supplying, and the whole thing comes in one package. Can we get up the next slide? Okay.
Welcome back.
Hello. So everything is pre on this system. So we have pre-configured hardware, pre-calibrated lenses, pre-installed software, and also pre-tested systems. So we will run your system 24 hours. We will run your system 24 hours with your virtual scene on it. So then we have the camera package, which is Blackmagic Orza Mini G2 and a Canon 18-80 lens combined with a StarTracker. Underneath you see the processor and the StarTracker on top. So this ships at one package in one case. It's very, very soft padding, so nothing is happening, but there is no need to configure, to bolt on anything. It just snaps onto the Cartoni Focus 22 head and is already done. So here's our rack. The rack is has one single keyer that we use for every that we switch between any camera. And as Mike said before, it comes as an 8 as well as a 16 camera version, and we have 2 render engines. Even if you add more cameras, the amount of render engines will stay the same. It is for film workflow as well as a real-time pixel, real-time filming. It is as well for film post-production workflow, so we store all the data of the camera system, of the lens and everything, to reconstruct and re-render scenes. And it's also for multi-camera, like you would have in a TV show or presentation scenario. Next. The system comes with a Cartoni Jibo. That allows you to have these sort of shots where you sort of come into the opening shots where you want to sweep in from slightly higher position into a lower position. And it comes with 2 rail systems. Next. And the rails give you a really nice and smooth way to sort of have lateral movement, move from left to right when the studio is in front of you, and it gives you really nice parallax, change in parallax, and you really feel you're in that space because you're moving slightly within that space. Next. So now it's about VP, the software, and we invited James to talk about that.
Hi guys. Hi. So yeah, I'm James. I'm the technical director at Mo-Sys, and I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about what we're doing on the software side of things. So just for a bit of context, Martin mentioned earlier that our StarTracker hardware is used in, I think, more than 100 studios around the world for news and sports and live broadcast. But in most of those situations, they're using a kind of layer in between in terms of software, so that you don't have sort of raw access to the engine underneath. Instead, they've created a software layer that allows you to achieve those high levels of graphics and have control systems and things like that that can bring in live data and news data and things like that. And that's very important in news environments and sports environments. But in corporate environments, it's maybe less important. And actually, so what we've done here is, as a way of reducing the cost of the overall system, we've created a plugin for the Unreal Engine directly. So a lot of these broadcast systems use the Unreal game engine to generate those amazing graphics. And you can see on the slide here, this is a kind of an image of what the Unreal Engine looks like. And it's designed to create video games. In fact, it's used to create the biggest video game of all time, which is Fortnite. Now, that means that they put a huge amount of effort into making those graphics really amazing, and the engine itself is incredible. But to use it in a virtual production context, you need a little bit of help. So we've created a plugin that adds some additional helpful information to the engine: status, allows you to monitor your video input, allows you to see how you're, check that everything's okay, your star trackers. We've added these features that Michael talked about, beam in, zoom in, to allow you to start to use the engine as a virtual production tool. So I see we had a question actually while that was going, while Michael was talking about the rendering software. So we are using Unreal Engine directly, and we actually pride ourselves on releasing our plugin on the day of release of the latest engine as well. So the nice thing here is that as soon as Epic release a new version of Unreal, we'll be right there with them to release our plugin, which means you get access to all the latest features. So that's a nice benefit of the plugin model, rather than kind of wrapping the engine up under some software. And then we can actually use, I think Mike mentioned this already, we can use our plugin in sort of 2 broadly different modes. One is where you're treating it as a live broadcast. So that's like we are today, where we are streaming directly, and we have streaming system in the Mo-Sys Studio Manager, which is in the rack, that allows you to stream directly to Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. And you're then switching between your cameras, 3 or more cameras live, and you're streaming that out directly to your customers or audience. Now, we can also operate in another mode, which is where you are going to, instead of live stream and live cut the cameras, you're actually going to record all of that information. So record all of the camera data, all of the tracking information from the star trackers, and you're going to also record the camera plates in the cameras. And then you have a workflow for post-production where you can take all of that into post and join it up together, and it's all timecode synchronized to make that nice and easy. Now, because we don't have a layer of software in between the engine and the user, we do recommend that you have a 3D artist or a 3D designer that's comfortable in Unreal or wants to explore Unreal. There's loads of amazing tutorials online. It's if you have already a 3D artist on your team that's kind of used to Maya or 3ds Max, it's a very easy transition. There's lots of helpful documentation from Epic to get people into working inside Unreal. And then those people can build your sets, design your animations, where you saw the screens pop in, for example. Those little bits of logic can all be done without having to write any code. You can just use the Unreal Blueprint system to do that kind of thing. So what we've tried to do is take the code writing out of the game side. So our VP plugin means you don't have to touch C++. You can just use our tools to manipulate the engine and to do stuff. And where we've we just built something the other day, which is for triggering animations, for example. So you can just, on a key press, trigger an animation to fire in. So nice thing about this is a subscription model. So you get constant updates. You're constantly using the latest version of the engine. Also, you get support with that in terms of us helping you to get used to the engine when you're getting started, but also constant bug fixing and new features, and that means that you're kind of always hopefully able to create the best looking content you can. So that's the software side of it. I'm very happy to answer any more questions towards the end. I'll hand back over to Mike and Michael now. Thanks very much.
Right, so we talked about this solution, StarTracker Studio, being a complete virtual studio in a box, if you like, but we didn't stop there. We thought about corporates and enterprises and how it's difficult to get people to come in and design for you and build for you. So we actually decided to take care of this solution ourselves. So we are offering a single point of contact, as I mentioned earlier, for all the support. So this starts right at the beginning when you set up. So we're there to help with a remote installation. We offer training, 2 days training is included in the package. We'll help you with the studio calibrations. The only part you have to do is align the system to the studio, and that's a very simple process that we help you with. And that's all included in the package. Then the warranty on the whole system is 12 months, and that's on every single item in there. That's included. There's no extra cost for that at all. The support, we give remote interactive support and diagnostics through the system. That's included in the first year, and that includes advanced parts replacement as well. So if anything happens to break on your system, we will send you out a new part before you send us back the broken part. And that's for all the elements in the system. So we try to take care of just about everything in this solution to make it really, really simple and allow enterprise and corporates to focus on making creative content rather than worrying about the technology. The only thing that we don't do is we don't provide Unreal Engine support. And what we recommend is that the artists or the Unreal Engine people in a corporate or enterprise, that they actually take out UE4 support, and that will give them the operational support and the updates that they need. But we do pretty much everything else. So that's it on the support side for StarTracker Studio. What's next? I think that's it.
Yep.
Q&A, I think, after that.
Yeah.
Here we go. Back to you, Marcus.
Okay, so the questions are flowing in. Keep them coming. Let's start with Ed wants to know, is the cost of the Unreal license included in the overall software license? So maybe, Michael, you want to answer that one?
We don't hear Marcus. Can you make
Mike?
I can pick that one up if you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're not hearing Mike or Michael at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I can pick that one up. So currently the Unreal license, the Unreal Engine is free to use for all situations where you aren't creating. I think it's 10,000 user games. So currently there's no cost to the Unreal license. However, it is useful to be part of the Unreal Developer Network, which I think is around $1,000 a year. Yeah.
Okay. What is the recordable output of the system? 4K question mark?
Yeah, I think we've lost Mike and Michael for the moment, so I'll field that one as well. Yeah, so absolutely, we can. The system is 4K throughout. So the cameras are 4K. It can be 4K right through the system. However, we do have an HD mode, and the reason for that is that for a lot of applications, particularly streaming, 4K is not really required, and you can get more graphics output out of your Unreal Engine if you don't run at 4K. So we find that people actually, although the system is absolutely 4K capable, and you can record in camera at 4K and render backplates out afterwards at 4K, we find that a lot of our current customers for this system, this kind of system, actually prefer to run at HD.
Okay. What's the max amount of video inputs supported? Are these SDI streams? James, I'm not sure if Michael...
Yeah, I think we still can't hear Mikhail, unfortunately. But that's fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, good. So we have two packages. One is covering up to 8 cameras, and the other one to 16. And
Okay.
the HD SDI output cameras that go straight into the system.
Perfect.
And the way we achieve that, so to have no limit or have a system that is already geared for up to 8 cameras, is we have a single keyer that we use for the camera that is on air, and we switch actually between frames with all the settings and everything. And the other render engine is for all the other cameras. So basically on these 2 render engines and 1 keyer, there is no limitation on cameras you can actually administrate, except your switcher. So therefore we have one system goes to 8 cameras and one goes to 16. And each system comes with 3 cameras and 3 lenses and 3 basically support systems.
Yeah, so you start with choosing your rack type. And then if you want 5 cameras, that's 2 more than the standard system shit. So we just add 2 camera chains to that. And at any point you can come back and add more camera chains to it. So the real choice is, do you think you'll use 9 cameras or more? And if not, then you go for the lower price system.
Okay, here's a practical question. Can I use the cameras outside of VP as normal cameras? And do I have to reconfigure it after?
Yes, you can. I mean, they're just normal Blackmagic cameras and the Canon 18-80 lenses, and you can film in a normal way with that and just disregard the StarTracker that is bolted on. You could also just unscrew it and take it off.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is the system compatible with the UE150?
Yes.
Short answer. Very good. How about lens calibration? How are the lenses calibrated?
The lenses are calibrated before they leave our factory. Together with the system, they're paired with the camera, lens and camera. And as such, they are calibrated and then put in a box and shipped.
Okay. Here's a question from someone. Can I use other lenses and cameras with this package?
Yeah. We don't want to make systems a la carte. We're not a system integrator, and we can point to associated system integrators then can make all sorts of flavors of these systems. But if it is just like you have existing cameras and you want to use them, fine, no problem. So we can deduct things and take things away from that system.
Okay. Nathaniel's curious how we managed to get 9 cameras with 2 render engines. Could you explain that a bit?
Okay. Do you want to do it?
No, well, I could, but I think James is probably the better one. Do you want to do it, James, or?
Sure thing. Yeah, I can explain it. So, so when you're watching a multi-camera broadcast, you, the audience, are only ever seeing one camera. So what happens in traditional broadcast environments is that you have the 4 cameras coming in, or 9, or however many you want. Let's say it's 4 cameras coming in, and then you have a switcher that's selecting which camera is going out to air. I've done that the wrong way around for you guys, I guess. Yeah, so which camera is going out to air. And what we've done here is we're kind of, because you only ever need to see this camera out on air, that's really the only one that you need to have the high-end graphics on. So what we do instead is we move the switcher to earlier on in the chain and then switch the input to the high-end graphics engine. And then switch the position of the virtual camera to match. And then that's all synchronized in our plugin to make a seamless cut between multiple cameras. So that means you can have 9 cameras because, and 9's a quite a convenient number because you can split the screen by 3 by 3 and for your preview, but then on the main program output, you only need to ever have that one live camera that's being rendered at the highest possible quality. So that's how we do it.
Okay, cool. Question from Ed. Have you tried the studio setup with Unreal's N display and LED walls?
Should I take that one, Michael?
Yeah, I think so, James.
Yeah, so just for a bit of context for people that are not familiar with the LED wall system, this is a new and emerging technique in virtual production where you, rather than have a green screen behind me here and then replace the green screen with, you know, the planet Mars or something like that, instead I actually have a big wall of LED panels that completely fill the frame. And then when the camera moves, so let's say my webcam moves like this, can you see the background is moving in parallax with me there? So the background has to move to match, and that gives the illusion of depth in the background. This is a technique that was used most recently on The Mandalorian, and there's some amazing kind of YouTube videos I recommend if you're interested in the technology to watch the behind the scenes of how they made that. There are lots of issues with the technology, and it's not by any means a panacea for, you know, for getting, it's not going to replace green screen, I don't think, in visual effects environments, but it is, it has some really nice benefits. The big one is that you can see what you're doing at the time. So what you're capturing, some people call this in-camera visual effects, because what you're capturing in the camera is actually, you know, the full visual effect, because you've already created Mars behind you. You're not doing it in post-production later, and that's really nice for the on-set craft practitioners. But then in a, there's another nice benefit, which is that rather than being hit by green spill, so you can see some light here coming from my window. Well, if I was in a green screen environment, this would be a green spill, which I would need to remove in post or in my live keyer. But if I had Mars behind me on an LED panel, I'd actually be being hit by the correct dynamic lighting. And as the camera moved, that lighting would change and all the reflections and everything would change. So there's some really nice benefits of doing LED wall. And Unreal, just to come to your question now, Ed, sorry, I just wanted to give a bit of context on what we're talking about. Unreal have released a system. A system has existed for a while now, actually, called N Display, which allows you to do this with the Unreal Engine. You still need tracking technology, so you still need something like StarTracker to track your camera moving around inside the LED volume. And we've been doing a lot of this over the last few months, we're getting a lot of inquiries about it and a lot of questions from people like yourself, Ed, about this technology. And StarTracker is really a great tracking system for this kind of for that kind of virtual production. But StarTracker Studio is not really designed for that. StarTracker Studio is designed for primarily a live or as live environment where you have multi-camera switching, and you're going to use a green screen background, and you're going to kind of increase the quality of your corporate videos, for example, by being able to have a full virtual environment and a full virtual set. LED walls are really expensive, and so it's not really appropriate for the kinds of markets that StarTracker Studio is targeted at. And Mandalorian is obviously a massive, huge multi-10 million, maybe even $100 million show. So it's going to be a while before that is they're cheap enough in order to make that available for everybody. There's also some technical problems with using LED walls, which we at Mo-Sys are currently doing research and development on.
But we as Mo-Sys are involved at the moment in several projects where we're actually helping to set up the screens and stuff like that. So we can help on that as well, but just don't expect that to be in the studio in a box, the StarTracker Studio.
Okay, thanks James, thanks Michael. Next question, which I/O cards and brands are currently fully supported to work with the Mo-Sys VP Pro plugin?
Yeah, I can field that one as well. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so we support all of the AJA cards, the COVID cards, and we support all of the Decklink Blackmagic cards. StarTracker Studio ships with Blackmagic Decklink cards built in, but VP Pro can support lots of different I/O.
Okay. Is VP Pro available outside of StarTracker Studio?
Yes, and that's what James is saying, that StarTracker Studio, although it contains a version of VP Pro, the product VP Pro is actually what we use for virtual production for the LED walls or for Green Screen Studio. So yes, you can buy it separately.
Okay. Another question, can StarTracker do set extension and front plate? I guess VP Pro, can it do set extension and front plate?
Absolutely, yeah. The way that we do the compositing in StarTracker Studio in VP Pro is with an external keyer, but then we actually do the compositing inside the core render engine. That means that you can position the virtual subject anywhere inside the 3D scene. So here's my camera, here's my subject, which would be, for example, Michael as a cardboard cutout. I can move them around. And that means that we get lots of benefits from that. We can have that's called volumetric shadows, which is where shadows fall onto 3D objects. We can have reflections in the scene as well. And we can put objects in front of the subject, which really helps to sell the fact that the person is in the scene. We saw Ben behind the table earlier, for example. That really, having foreground objects really helps, which I'm guessing is what you mean by front plate. And in terms of set extension, that would be probably something more for VP Pro, in general, rather than the StarTracker Studio solution. So, for example, in a visual effects environment, for example, if you wanted to have, if you had a set, but you had a window with a green, green behind the window, and you wanted to show the beach outside or something, and you want that beach to be generated, then that's absolutely possible. And we have a number of different compositing modes for that in VP Pro. And I think we're actually going to do a whole deep dive into VP Pro as a separate webinar in the coming weeks. So when, I'd encourage you, anonymous attendee, I encourage you to attend that one as well. And we will, we can kind of dive into the different use cases, the different workflows.
Okay, thank you, James. Is the system configured in redundant mode? It's one question. I'm not sure if I get this question, but maybe.
Yeah, I think I know what the what Eamon's saying. Yeah, so it doesn't have any built-in redundancy, but there is a fallback redundancy. So what redundancy means for those not familiar with the term, it's basically having a backup chain. If something goes wrong, you know, the show must go on, right? So how do we keep Michael talking to you guys through the system? A common way of doing that is to have an entire redundant chain. Now, of course, that's very expensive because you've got to have a whole nother system. And also that whole other system has to be connected to the first system. So if you make any changes in the first system, they're reflected in the backup system. So we don't have a full redundant chain here, but we do have a redundancy in the fact that we can always cut back to a single close-up camera. So one of your cameras is probably going to be on a close-up. We can always cut back to that one camera over a still background that matches the set. So that's our fallback redundancy. You don't actually need any computer in the system to go back to that. So if there is a power surge and both computers explode, you can still, we would still be able to have Michael continue to talk to us, for example.
Perfect. Okay, so we reached the end of the questions. Michael, Mike, you want to give a quick summary?
Yeah, so StarTracker Studio is our product. We only launched it 2 weeks ago. It's a novel approach to virtual studios. It's a very disruptive product for obvious reasons. But we're looking to the AV marketplace primarily for this product. So we're very interested in hearing from AV integrators around the world who'd be interested in selling this product and maybe supporting it too. But yeah, I think this is the first of a chain of products that are going to be quite disruptive for the marketplace. The other thing is I just want to qualify on the camera question. So this is very much a cookie cutter type of solution in that by having lots of them in the marketplace, we can support them all very easily. As Mikhail said, we will offer other versions. We're already thinking about a higher camera quality version, the full frame version, and we're going to choose the camera, the lens to match that. And I think the caller who called in talking about the UE150, that seems to be a very obvious third option to have for different marketplaces. But essentially outside of those, we would probably look at selling a camera-less version of the system, allow people to choose their lenses and cameras, and then we would have to actually calibrate those lenses separately as a separate task. So I just want to qualify that bit.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. There was one question we overlooked apparently, so I'm just going to ask it. You mentioned that based upon the rack design, it is quite easy to move from studio to studio. I presume this means the studio has been pre-mapped. In the case of a brand Me space, how complicated would it be for the end user to set up the new space, or would that require a Mo-Sys on-site visit?
Not necessarily. We have a lot of people that are setting up StarTracker remotely. We actually had a mass installation where we helped people in 12 different cities at the same time remotely to set up StarTrackers. I think that was a record. Doing remote setups is actually quite empowering for the customer, because before COVID, of course, we flew everywhere, we helped everywhere. But then very often customers were left with not actually having real ownership of the system, and we went home and the knowledge went home as well. And what we now experienced during COVID is we were forced to do remote setups. And as a result, customers were empowered. They understood more from the system. And like everybody, it is easier to learn something by doing. But if somebody comes and installs it for you, you're normally busy doing other things. And yeah, so we got quite hooked to that. I think it's cheaper, and it helps the customer to become a power user much quicker. But we also fly now anywhere as well, so both possible.
I was just going to add to that. So if you move to a new studio and it hasn't got any of our markers, then you need to put them up. If it has got the markers, you just need to calibrate a map to that studio, which is a very quick process that we actually would help any StarTracker Studio customer with via our remote service.
Okay, thank you. There were a few questions regarding the cost, the price, but we would ask you to please get in contact with us. So at the end, I'm going to put up a slide where we have all the contact info, and just send us an email or call us, and we can talk about the cost. Okay. Yeah, I think we reached the end of the questions. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.